Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're gathered today on the 23rd of the 8th month on our Creator's calendar as we comprehend it, which happens to coincide with November 1st, 2025 on the Gregorian calendar. And we are currently continuing with our reading of the book of Bâmidbar or Numbers. We're on chapter 15. And this covers the law of the meat offering and the drink offering. The stranger is under the same law, meaning equality under the law, which is a common law principle. The law of the first of the dough for the heave offering. The sacrifice for sin of ignorance. The punishment of presumption. And he that violated the Sabbath is stoned, and the law of fringes, or the zitziot, right? And how that's carried down in time, we'll cover it when we get there, but there's different ways that this has been kept that I'm familiar with. Oh, just lost my place. Sorry about that. So this is 15, and it says, And Yahuah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, When you are come into the land of your habitation, which I give to you, and you will offer your whole burnt offerings to Yahuah, a whole burnt offering, or a meat offering to perform a vow, or a freewill offering, or to offer in your feasts a sacrifice of sweet savor to Yahuah, whether of the herd or the flock, then he that offers his gift to Yahuah shall bring a meat offering of fine flour, a tenth part of an ephah mingled with oil, even with the fourth part of a hin. And for a drink offering you shall offer the fourth part of a hin on the whole burnt offering, or on the meat offering. For every lamb you shall offer so much as a sacrifice, a smell of sweet savor to Yahuah. And as far as I'm aware, the first or the oldest writing that has any measures for the amount of the wood, the incense, the amount of flour, wine, and oil that you would use in proportion to the animal was in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I believe it was in the Testament of Louis. It might have been in the book of Yobelim, but that does not predate the Testament of Louis. That was written afterwards on the 15th of the third month when Moshe was on the Mount Sinai with our Creator, right, or with our Mashiach, who is the esteem of Yahuwah that appeared to them, right? We've covered that before. But anyways, these measurements are not as in depth as the ones you find there. It gives you exact measurements in a different order, but it just says for the amount of wood proportional to actually burn the offering, and the amounts of oil, wine, and flour in proportion to the amount of meat for the offering so that it can be a pleasant savor to Yahuwah, right? And for a ram, when you offer it as a whole burnt offering or as a sacrifice, you shall prepare as a meat offering 2/10 of fine flour mingled with oil, the third part of a hin. And you shall offer for a smell of sweet savor to Yahuwah wine for a drink offering, the third part of a hin. And if you sacrifice from the herd for the whole burnt or for a whole burnt offering, or for a sacrifice, to perform a vow or a shalom offering to Yahuwah, then shall offer upon the calf a meat offering, 3/10 deals of fine flour mingled with oil, the half of a hin, and wine for a drink offering, the half of a hin, a sacrifice for the smell of sweet savor to Yah, or yeah, a smell of sweet savor to Yahuwah. I'm sorry, I lost my spot. Right there. There we go. Verse 11. Thus shall you, let's see, I did it again. Thus shall you do to one calf or to one ram or to one lamb of the sheep or kid of the goats. According to the number of what you shall offer, so shall you do to each one, according to their number. Every native of the country shall do thus to offer such things as sacrifices for a smell of sweet savor to Yahuah. And if there should be a stranger among you in your land, or one who should be born to you among your generations, and he will offer a sacrifice, a smell of sweet savor to Yahuah, as you do, so the whole congregation shall offer to Yahuah. There shall be one law for you and for the strangers abiding among you, a perpetual law for your generations. As you, or as you are, so shall the stranger be before Yahuah. And this doesn't equate any one man over or above another. There is one law for the king as for the people, or peasants, if you will. There was no deviation under the common law in regards to that. In the course of time, the Romanism, Babylonianism, right? The contrary law of man-made ordinances have crept in, and we've given positions of esteem, honor, immunity to so-called people in positions of authority, which ought not to be done, because then we're violating his law, which makes us culpable, and we get the thing that we deserve, which is our own choices. So I mention these things because we can choose not to do those things freely, but we have to know the law. His word is the law of creation, right? It is what we call the common law, although men might not know that as clearly as they used to. It doesn't change the facts, right? Then the more we conform to it, the better off we are. Whenever we're supposed to judge someone in our country, it's according to his word, not just arbitrary statutes. But that's a different thing. It says, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the sons of Yisrael, and you shall say to them, when you are entering into the land into which I bring you, then it shall come to pass, when you shall eat of the bread of the land, you shall separate a wave offering, a special offering to Yahuwah, the first fruits of your dough. This doesn't mean you do it everywhere. It's only when you enter into the land. So when we're outside of the land, it is literally not something that we're enjoined to do here. But just to be clear, there are instructions for us in the apostolic constitutions on what we ought to be doing in assemblies today, but we actually have to form them properly. So that's a different thing for different matter though. It says, then it shall come to pass when you shall eat of the bread of the land, you shall separate a wave offering, a special offering to Yahuwah, the first fruits of your dough. You shall offer your bread a heave offering, as a heave offering from the threshing floor, so shall you separate it, even the first fruits of your dough, and you shall give Yahuwah a heave offering throughout your generations. So that doesn't change, but when you go into the land doing this part, is you don't go to the temple to do that, right? But your giving of your first fruits is still a requirement. But whensoever you shall transgress and not perform all these commands which Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, as Yahuwah appointed you by the hand of Moshe, from the day which Yahuwah appointed you and forward throughout your generations, then it shall come to pass, if a trespass be committed unwillingly, like you're not aware of it, unknown to the congregation, then shall all the congregation offer a calf of the herd without blemish for a whole burnt offering of sweet savor to Yahuwah. Now I want to take a moment here just so you can get the parable. If you go back to the first references of this animal apocalypse in the book of Enoch or First Enoch, I believe it's in the 80s. I don't know for sure what chapters it's in, but the animal apocalypse goes over most of history in a parable form, where it takes men as different types of animals. when you look at what the calf or the bull or of the herd represented and how that equated to men of a certain character, and then what it meant for his people, like the calf of the people. And then you think about how things worked in history, where you had the sins of the people attributed onto their head and Kohen, high Kohen. It would have been Moshe in total, but then Aharon, and then it was covered or propitiated by their death before the whole of the congregation could be brought in to the land. Then think about the laws that they have in connection with that for a man who kills another man, but doesn't do it of malicious intent. He's to flee to a city of refuge, and he's to stay in that city and not to leave the 2,000 cubits area around the city. Or if he's caught by the revenger of blood and killed, his blood is on his own head. However, after the high Kohen dies, he's allowed to return. There's a release there. In the same way here, you can see something of a similar nature in a parable with the calf. Now, I'm not equating this to the high Kohen in any capacity. The offerings are all pointing to Mashiach, and he is our high Kohen. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just pointing out the things that are actually in his word and how we're supposed to see that he's trying to teach a reasonable man or a mind wisdom with these things, right? If you only go by what's written, you have the identity of what the calf is and what it represents in a parable form in the animal apocalypse. You have other things where men are equated as sheeps and lambs, where it's his people, right? You have direct connections from that animal apocalypse to different foretellings about certain men, like the donkey being equated to the wild donkey man Yishmael. And then there's a whole parable with what that represents as the first covenant believers, right? But then you also have Edom equated in that animal apocalypse as a wild boar. And you don't find that reference except for in the book of Yobelim, where Jacob, when he was mourning the death of Leah, his wife, Edom surrounds him with mercenaries to try to kill him. And Yaakov, foretells that his brother Edom is like a wild boar rushing into the spear that's going to kill him because he's violating his oaths that he swore to his mother and father about not having evil intent towards one another. And no one can break a covenant and have expectation of life or success. But either way, when you look at these in that way, you can see how this is representative of the offering of our Mashiach as a forgiveness for our sins in a parable. So I know that was kind of a digression there, but this is how you have to comprehend his word by not going beyond it, only thinking about what is written and allowing him to teach us, right? It says, the congregation, all the congregation shall offer a calf of the herd without blemish for a whole burnt offering of sweet savor to Yahuah, and its meat offering, and its drink offering according to the ordinance, and one kid of the goats for a sin offering. And the Kohen shall make atonement for all the congregation of the children of Israel, and shall be forgiven them, because it is involuntary, and they have brought their gift, a burnt offering to Yahuah for their trespass before Yahuah, even for their involuntary sins. And it shall be forgiven all respects, all or as respects all the congregation of the children of Israel and the stranger that is abiding among you, because it is involuntary to all the people. And if any one soul sin unwillingly, he shall bring one she-goat of a year old for a sin offering. And the Kohen shall make atonement for the soul that committed the trespass unwillingly, and that sinned unwillingly before Yahuah, to make atonement for him. Right. There shall be one law for the native among the children of Israel, and for the stranger that abides among them, whosoever shall commit a trespass unwillingly, and whatever soul either of the natives or of the strangers shall do anything which or with a presumptuous hand, he will provoke Elohim, that soul shall be cut off from his people. And this is the part you cut him off for his give his body up to destruction by Satan so that his soul might be saved, is another way of putting that, just like Shaul mentions. And you'll find there's instances where the children willingly partake of the punishment that they are under when they are in a repentative state. It didn't mean they didn't get stoned to death. They still got cut off, but you don't see them fighting. The ones that you did see fighting, like Abiram and Dathan, had an extraordinary manner of dying as well. The earth swallowed them up. They weren't even stoned by their fellow man. But the ones who willingly partake of it, can you say that they repented? Did they take the punishment or the chastisement of the Almighty without complaint? These are things to consider. You know, it's not a pleasant thing that happened, but what's the alternative, right? For he that has set at naught the word of Yahuah and broken his commands, that soul shall be utterly destroyed, his sin upon him. And this is a terrible condemnation, which we have in our Mashiach. We have liberty where there is not a way. It says, where it was impossible with men, nothing is impossible with him. And this is why you find throughout the foretellers that even when the people for hundreds of years had been adulterous pagans, willingly committing atrocities, so much so that they were given divorce and kicked out of the land, he still said, if you return to me, I will return to you. And the fact that that was true is that the whole Scythian nation repented. When the northern kingdom was taken into captivity, a remnant of them repented while they were being taken. They left, broke off from their captivity, were miraculously protected and helped over the Euphrates. They founded the city of Arsareth and became the Scythians, who were known for their piety. And they made a vow to keep the law outside of the land that they would not keep in it. You can find this information in 4th Ezra. You can find the secular account of their migration and settlement in Herodotus as well. And you can find an account of their piety and their righteous dealings with men and their eventual fall by corruption through Rome in the lost names, or the names of the lost tribes in captivity, um, by William Pascoe or Gord. I'll have to find that book and get the proper title, but it has an account from other histories about the Scythians, and they were the exemplary of character, of morality for barbarous peoples. They were very moral, even in their simplicity. But either way, he would keep them, and he did until they went perverted, right? Just like they kept the Chaldeans free from being offended until they went perverted from the laws of the altar. He stays true until we turn away, and then he lets us reap the thing that we deserve. But either way, the point is the fact that he was able to forgive them even when it was knowing intentional sin is for the works of what Yahushua did. Here, it was not possible for intentional sin to be anything but corrected by the death, to show, to teach in a physical, a spiritual application, right? And then, willing, you can see that it was his kindness to do so. Like Shaul mentions, their body was brought to destruction so that their soul could be delivered. Excuse me. It says, and the children of Yisrael were in the wilderness, and they found a man gathering sticks on the Shabbat Yom. And they who found him gathering sticks on the Sabbath day brought him to Moshe and Aharon and to all the congregation of the children of Yisrael. And they placed him in custody, for they did not determine what they should do to him. And Yahuah spoke to Moshe, saying, Let the man be by all means put to death. All the congregation stoned him with stones. And all the congregation brought him forth out of the camp. And all the congregation stoned him with stones outside the camp, as Yahuah commanded Moshe. And Yahuah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall tell them, and let them make for themselves fringes upon the borders of their garments throughout their generations. That word for fringes there, you can see, is zitziot, right? Zitzit, right? And it's on the borders of the garment. The border there is the kanaf. It's the same as a wing. You can see like the wing of a bird or of a garment, the flap, quarter, the pinnacle, or what you call maybe the hem or edge, right? So a blue on the edge of the garment. Some people, like myself included today, I'll wear tassels I just clip onto my belt loops that has a blue thread in it. Some of the Native Americans would have a blue trim around the hem of their shirts or their garments there, and that was part of the zizio. The idea isn't to be stickler in it must be this length, that size, a peculiar material or any there's nothing like that. The only idea is to have a blue on the borders of your garment, as you see the firmament is the edges of the garment of the sun. It's all blue. And let that blue remind you. This is the key, and I want to tell you something about that in just a moment, but it's to remind you to guard his word. So here, let's read this real quick. It says that you shall tell them that they shall make for themselves fringes upon the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and you shall put upon the fringes of the borders a lace of blue. And it shall be on your fringes, and you shall look on them, and you shall remember all the commands of Yahuah, and do them, and you shall not turn back after your imaginations, and after your eyes in the things after which you go a whoring. So if you know and believe that his word is literal reality, then seeing this is a very powerful thing. When I came to this as a simple childlike belief, I read it and I grabbed onto these facts. If I wear a blue fringe with a purpose, and I have that fringe when I look upon it, I will remember his commandments and be able to do them and not follow after my own imaginations. It was a very important thing for me because I struggled with memory issues. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that to anyone in the videos here while we've been reading them, but one of the things that helped me become a sincere believer is the fact that I was chastised for what I was doing. And I actually had the things that I'd said come upon me, one of which was that I would have the mind like the elderly. And I literally could forget what I was saying in the middle of speaking on occasion at one point. It was very aggravating and a very trying time for my wife, I assure you. But
Amen.
when I read this in simple childlike belief, I took hold of it and I thought, this is my key to be able to remember his words if I can't remember anything else in my life. And I started wearing these things, and I tell you, I have not had a difficult, I can't remember chapters and verses, like I can't spit out those numbers all the time. Predating 2013, my memory is very Swiss cheese-like. It's if come and go. It's a little better now than it was. But when it comes to the things that I've been studying in his word that he's allowed me to know, it's just as he said, I will bring all things to your remembrance, everything which I've spoken to you. And it's an amazing thing. So I give all esteem and credit to him for that. And it's simply by being obedient like a child to what he said here, because he is trustworthy even when we're not, but he's trustworthy when we are. So if he said that he will do this for us, you can guarantee it. And then you have the places in the book of Yobelim where he mentions he would bring all things to the remembrance of Jacob when he asked him as a promise of these things. You have that reminded again when he breathes upon his taught ones and he opens their minds to comprehend the scriptures. So this is what he means when you ask and believe, or when you do things in belief. All it takes is the act. It was my doing the thing in belief that was accounted as righteous, and boom, he gave me the ability to know. You can look at every video here and see I can't take credit for anything that he shared with me or to be able to retain it in my mind. I was in a sad place for a long time. But it was my crying out to him that helped me.
Hey, brother, I'm crying with you right now. I'm still crying, and I don't cry.
Thank you, brother. But it was from these things that it brought like a smelling salt, brought me out of my stupor, and I started paying serious attention to the things that are written. So I'm thankful, very thankful for what I've suffered. It was Tov that I was afflicted, that I might learn your Torah, right? And that's in the Psalms, of course. But right here it says, and that you remember and perform all my commands, and you shall be kadosh, or set apart, separated, distinguished unto your Elohim. I am Yahuah, your Elohim, that brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. To be your Elohim, I am Yahuah, your Elohim. Well, this is chapter 16. Oh, and I just mentioned them. So this is the rebellion of Korach, Dathan, and Abiram. Moshe separates the people from the rebels' tents because they continue in disobedience. I want you to be mindful. They did not repent when it was brought as accusation for their not listening, and they didn't listen when they were commanded to do a thing to prove it, and then you can see what happens. But the earth swallows up Korach, and a fire consumes others. The censers are reserved to Kodesh use, and everything's for a purpose, right? We'll see how the incense censers that they used are later put as a shield or a covering for the altar so that the people can see it and remember not to rebel, right? 14,700 are slain by a plague for murmuring against Moshe and Aharon. Aharon by incense stays the plague. Now, I want you to keep in mind the one who's being accosted, just like Job was afflicted by his friends, and he was made right by making propitiation for them. You can see that Aharon, even though he was being murmured against, he makes propitiation for the people. That stays the plague, and in so doing, it also helps to pacify the people against him because now he's done for their benefit that they can see. This is in Korach, the son of Yishar, or Isar, the son of Kohath, the son of Lui, and Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Oholiab, and Un, the son of Pheleth, the son of Reuben, spoke. So Dathan, Abiram, and um, Un here, all of these are sons of Reuben, just for connection. Sons of Lui from Kohath's family, which he was the Kohen after Lui, and then it went to Amram, and then it went to Aharon. So it stayed in the head of the family here. But these are his children from Kohath and sons of Reuben rebelling against Moshe in the wilderness. That is, again, all of these are echoes of what would happen in history. They're parables of future events. And this is like when France was in collusion with the papacy and what they did with against the people. You can think the Edict of Nantes, St. Bartholomew Massacre, things of that nature, very horrible stuff, right? But these are what was being alluded to at these times, foretelling the events that would happen later, because remember, they rose up against Yahusef and sold him into slavery as a type of our Mashiach. That's all another echo that came later on, or this one came later from that one. And then it further on happens again, right? But either way, it says, and they rose up before Moshe and 250 men of the sons of Yisrael, chiefs of the assembly, chosen counselors, and men of renown. They rose up against Moshe and Aharon and said, let it be enough for you that all the congregation are kadosh, or set apart, and Yahuah among them. And why do you set up yourselves against the congregation of Yahuah? And when Moshe heard it, he fell on his face, and he spoke to Korach and all his assembly, saying, Elohim has visited and known those that are his, and who are set apart, and has brought them to himself. And whom he has chosen for himself, he has brought to himself. This do you, take to yourselves censers, Korach and all his company, and put fire on them, and put incense on them before Yahuah tomorrow. And it shall come to pass that the man whom Yahuah has chosen, he shall be kadosh. Let it be enough for you, you sons of Louis. Now, I want to point out it was sons of Louis and sons of Reuben that rebelled, and 250 men of the sons of Yisrael, the chiefs of the men. But he's only directing Korach and the sons of Louis to bring the incense censers, and he's rebuking them for what they're doing because they should have known better. They were given more, they were brought close to him, they were made set apart and given positions of esteem because they chose to repent, but now they're quibbling about it and they're having infighting. The ones to whom much is given, much is expected. And the ones in a higher position, if you want to call it higher, right? The ones in positions of servants of the people are going to be corrected more for it immediately, just like the kings are. But that's why they were corrected here and not everyone. And Moshe said to Korach, hearken to me, you sons of Louis. Is it a little thing for you that the Elohim of Yisrael has separated you from the congregation of Yisrael and brought you near to himself to minister in the services of the tabernacle of Yahuah and to stand before the tabernacle to minister for them? And he has brought you near, and all your brethren, the sons of Louis, with you. And do you seek to be Kohanim also? Now, this is like a foreshadow of what is in Yechezkiel about how all the children went astray, except for the sons of Zadok, who would be the ones serving him. That was a type of what happened during the Maccabean period, with the Maccabees being given the kahuna at their reinstatement as a fulfillment of that. And then it's going to fully culminate when he returns during the millennial reign, that we will be made like kings and Kohanim before him for 1,000 years. This is the precursor to that thing. The events that led up to Aharon being chosen as Kohen over the people in the wilderness, right?
Unfortunately, people don't get to hear this.
Right. Well, they'll get to hear it now if they listen, right?
I
Says, what's that, brother?
said, yeah.
Yeah. Says, and he has brought you near, and all your brethren, the sons of Louis, with you. And do you seek the Kohanim also, or the Kahuna also? Thus you and all your congregation, which is gathered together against Elohim, and who is Aharon, that you murmur against him? And Moshe sent to call Dathan and Abiram, sons of Aholiab, and they said, we will not go up. Continued rebellion. They did not repent and take what they had, right? Is it a little thing that you have brought us up to a land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness, that you altogether rule over us? You are a prince, and have you brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey? And have you given us an inheritance of land and vineyards? Would you have put out the eyes of those men? We will not go up. And Moshe was exceeding indignant, and said to Yahuah, Do you take no heed to their sacrifice? I have not taken away the desire of any one of them, neither meaning the desire of their eyes, which is what they meant by would you have put out the eyes of those men by taking away their desire. But it was their own actions that caused them to be prevented from the promised land. It was not the actions of Moshe, right? So all he's doing here is appealing to the truth and asking Yahuwah to help him by not giving their prayer, right? He said, I have not taken away the desire of any one of them, neither have I hurt any one of them. And Moshe said to Korach, Set apart your company, and be ready before Yahuwah, you and Aharon and they tomorrow, and take each man his censer, and you shall put incense upon them, and shall bring each one his censer before Yahuwah, 250 censers, and you and Aharon shall bring each his censer. Now, if you remember, the last time strange fire, not according to what Yahuwah had prescribed, was brought, it was brought by the sons of Aharon, because they did not do it according to his word. And so when these men who are not authorized to do so are likewise bringing offerings not according to his word, they are going to get the similar treatment as you're going to see here, right? And each man took his censer, and they put on them fire, and laid incense on them. And Moshe and Aharon stood by the doors of the tabernacle of witness. And Korach raised up against them all his company by the door of the tabernacle of witness. And the esteem of Yahuwah appeared to all the congregation. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe and Aharon, saying, Separate yourselves from the midst of this congregation, and I will consume them at once. And they fell on their faces and said, Elohim, the Elohim of Ruachoth, or spirits, and of all flesh, if one man has sinned, shall the wrath of Yahuwah be upon the whole congregation. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the congregation, saying, Depart from the company of Korach round about. And Moshe rose up, and now I want you to see, it was never Yahuwah's intent to destroy all the people. It's his intention to show you that when someone rebels against him, they and all those with them or associated with them or joined together with them are under a curse, and they're all ready to be consumed. But at the obedience of listening to Moshe, when he tells them to separate from them, if they listen, they're protected. This is a physical, simple, you can say a physical truth to teach a spiritual reality, right? The same thing that all of this is supposed to be for us. The trainer before the fullness came. All right, let's continue. It says, And Moshe rose up and went to Dathan and Abiram, and all the elders of Yisrael went with him. I do want to point out this is also teaching us to, if we want to be in a right standing with our Creator, we ought to be an intercessor like Moshe, to intercede for the people. All right. It says, Moshe rose up and went to Dathan and Abiram, and all the elders of Yisrael went with him. And he spoke to the congregation, saying, Separate yourselves from the tents of these stubborn men, and touch nothing that belongs to them, lest you be consumed with them in all their sin. Another witness to this phenomenon carried over even into the renewed covenant times is after the uh, after the time of Yahushua in the apostolic era. You have an account of Yahuchanan going into a building where he learns that Cerinthus who is a Nicolaitan, was in. And when he found out, he ran out of the building, declaring that we should all flee from him and not be anywhere near him, lest the building and everyone died when it collapsed on him, because there was no chance that there was anything but calamity following this man for the evils that he was doing. Cerinthus was a Nicolaitan. He was contemporary with Yahuchanan in the latter parts of his life, and he was also the first Gnostic to introduce a type of the Christ Mass on the 25th of December or the 6th of the Julian calendar, January there. Um, he was the first. Sixtus the Third was the one who instituted it for Catholicism officially later on, but it happened right during the times of the apostles there. You can find out that information, I believe, in Irenaeus' Against Heresies, and when you look at the Antichrist for Dummies series, it goes over that stuff in a few of them. But anyways, it says, separate from them, lest you be consumed with them in all their sin. Just like it mentions in Revelation, come out of her, my people, lest you partake of her plagues and be guilty of her sins, right? And they stood aloof from the tent of Korach round about, and Dathan and Abiram, and went forth and stood by the doors of their tents, and their wives and their children, and their store. And Moshe said, hereby shall you know that Yahuah has sent me to perform all these works, that I have not done them of myself. If these men shall die according to the death of all men, if also their visitation shall be according to the visitation of all men, then Yahuah has not sent me. But if Yahuah shall show by a wonder, and the earth shall open her mouth and swallow them up, and their houses, and their tents, and all that belongs to them, and they shall go down alive into the grave, or as it mentions in the KJV, into hell, right? Where we get the word hole in English, right? But into the grave, then will you know, or then you shall know, that these men have provoked Yahuah, the one who causes it to be. And when he ceased speaking all these words, the ground clave asunder beneath them, and the ground opened and swallowed them up and their houses, and all the men that were with Korach and their cattle. Now, if this is an evidence declared by the mouth of Moshe, that when the earth opens itself up and swallows up a man in his house and what belongs to them, and they go alive into the grave, that's an evident fact that you can know that those men, the ones that actually suffered this to happen to them, provoked the Almighty. I mention that because there's these things that happen even today. You have these holes in the ground that swallow up houses all over the world. It's happened for a few decades now. It's not a normal phenomenon by any measure, but what do you think it means? Right? It's certainly not that he's pleased. I guarantee it. And all Yisrael round about them fled from the sound of them, for they said, lest the earth swallow us up. And fire went forth from Yahuah and devoured the 250 men that offered incense. And Yahuah said to Moshe and to Eleazar, the son of Aharon the Kohen, take up the brazen censers out of the midst of the men that have been burnt, and scatter the strange fire yonder. Now this was strange fire, not because it was offered with different measures. It doesn't mention that they had any different measurements than what was given to Aharon. It could have been the exact same thing, but it was not the prescribed men who were allowed to do so. In the other manner, with the sons of Aharon, it was strange fire that they brought, not according to what he had given them to do, and that was what was offensive to him that caused them to be burnt up. But in the same capacity, to whom much is given, much is expected. And if you You cannot draw near to him offering strange fire without this effect, right? Both by what it is you're offering and by who it is that's offering it. Just like if you're not an overseer today, or if you have never been called by him literally to do so, and you go around calling yourself an apostle or or anything like a prophet, you, you can't have a good expectation for anything that comes from them or their end unless they repent. Otherwise, what they say will have manifest reality happening to them, like it is with Moshe, and then you'll know they won't have to go around touting a title, right? But anyways, it says, and for they have set apart the censors of these sinners against their own souls, and do you make them beaten plates a covering to the altar, because they were brought before Yahuah and set apart, and they became a sign to the children of Israel. And Eleazar, the son of Aharon the Kohen, took the brazen censers, which the men who had been burnt brought near, and they put them as a covering on the altar, a memorial to the children of Israel, that no stranger might draw nigh, who is not of the seed of Aharon, to offer incense before Yahuah. So he shall not be as Korach, and as they that conspired with him, as Yahuah spoke to him by the hand of Moshe. And the children of Israel murmured the next day against Moshe and Aharon, saying, You have killed the people of Yahuah. And it came to pass, when the congregation combined against Moshe and Aharon, that they ran impetuously to the tabernacle of witness, and the cloud covered it. Remember, no one was supposed to go near it but the sons of Louis, or at least they die. There was the instructions for them to guard it, right? It says, and the cloud covered it, and the esteem of Yahuah appeared. And Moshe and Aharon went in front of the tabernacle of witness. And Yahuah spoke to Moshe and Aharon, saying, Depart out of the midst of this congregation, and I will consume them at once. And they fell upon their faces. And Moshe said to Aharon, Take a censer, and put on it fire from the altar, and put incense on it, and carry it away quickly into the camp, and make atonement for them. For wrath is gone forth from the presence of Yahuah. It has begun to destroy the people. Now, see, they went to complain against Moshe and Aharon, and Moshe, knowing that only Aharon and his children are the ones that are allowed to do so, sent his brother to go make atonement by going between the dead and the living as a type of our Mashiach, the one reviled by the people who makes intercession for them as their high Kohen, while they themselves are despising him. If you can see that, it's very clear here. And it says, And Aharon took as Moshe spoke to him, and ran among the congregation, for already the plague had begun among the people. And he put on incense and made an atonement for the people. And he stood between the dead and the living, and the plague ceased. And they, and if you want a fuller picture of how this is taken in Scripture, you have accounts of this in, I believe it's mentioned in Josephus, but he describes what the garments of the Kohen represent. And then when you read the Chokmah Shalomo, or the Wisdom of Solomon, it alludes to the garments and what they stand for, and how his standing between the dead and the living was a propitiation and how it is significant in that manner. And then I believe another reference to this and how it was a commendable act is in Sirach, or Sirach ben Yahushua, also known as Ecclesiastes, or Ecclesiasticus, please forgive me. It says, and then they and they that died in the plague were 14,700, besides those that died on account of Korach, which would have been the 250, and then Korach and his men, right? Dab and Atharam and all their families. And Aharon returned to Moshe to the door of the tabernacle of witness, and the plague ceased. Right. So this is chapter 17, and these are more evident proofs. This is the signs of the authority of the kahuna, the evidences of the legitimacy of who he's established, and the correction against those who rebel throughout their wilderness journeys after they're being liberated out of spiritual or out of Egypt, if you will. If you take the spiritual Babylon or Egypt and then the Reformation, they're coming out of it, the history of what's happened to us and the things that are going on, this is the wilderness journey parallel that we are living through before being brought into the land. Those that rebel against Moshe, as it's also mentioned in the foretellers, he will take us out of the nations to which he has scattered us, but he will not bring us into the land. We will die while we are in the wilderness. Anyways, this is Aharon's rod among all the rods of the tribes only flourishes. It is left for a monument against the rebels. Unfortunately, this is not one of the items that was still in the tabernacle or in the Ark of the Covenant and the items that were there, as far as Ron Wyatt had disclosed when he rediscovered the Ark of the Covenant um, in the 1980s. But either way, this is chapter 17. It says, And Yahuah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and take rods of them, according to the houses of their families, a rod from all their princes, according to the houses of their families, 12 rods, and write the name of each on his rod, and write the name of Aharon on the rod of Louis. For it is one rod, they shall give according to the tribe of the house of their families. And you shall put them in the tabernacle of witness before the testimony, where I will be made known to you. He's the truth, right? And it shall be the man whom I shall choose. Oh, that's interesting. Think about that. And you shall put them in the tabernacle of witness before the testimony, where I will be made known to you. Okay. And it shall be the man whom I shall choose, his rod shall blossom, and I will remove from me the murmuring of the children of Israel, which they murmur against you. And Moshe spoke to the children of Israel, and all their chiefs gave him a rod. For one chief a rod according to the house of their families, 12 rods, and the rod of Aharon in the midst of the rods. And Moshe laid up the rods before Yahuah in the tabernacle of witness. And it came to pass on the morrow that Moshe and Aharon went into the tabernacle of witness, and behold, the rod of Aharon for the house of Louis blossomed, and put forth a bud and bloomed blossoms, and produced almonds. And Moshe brought forth all the rods before Yahuah to all the sons of Israel, and they looked, and each one took his rod. And Yahuah said to Moshe, Lay up the rod of Aharon before the testimonies to be kept as a sign for the children of the disobedient, and let their murmuring cease from me, and they shall not die. And Moshe and Aharon did as Yahuah commanded Moshe, so they did. And the children of Israel spoke to Moshe, saying, Behold, we are cut off, we are destroyed, we are consumed. Everyone that touches the tabernacle of Yahuah dies. Shall we die utterly? So even in all this, they still don't comprehend it's the things that they're doing that are causing us the problems. Ob willing, we can be quicker learners than our forefathers here.
Could I ask a question, please?
Certainly, brother.
You reference this, the 40 years wandering is a parallel to uh, the 2,000 years before so he returns. So that puts us toward the end of the 40-year journey. However, I would ask you uh, if the scenario you've just put forth, and I recognize it, I've read it, but when you read it, it occurred to me that the priesthood, because it says in the New Testament, I shall make a kingdom of priests unto you, that the true believer, the one who true in their heart, and I don't know who they uh, have become the ambassadors of Father, because that's truly what a priest is the in between man and Elohim, and we are to talk to the world about Elohim. So that's the priest or the priesthood. Here it was a Haran, but today it would be those who honestly believe, the true called out ones. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. And it was established according to the apostolic constitutions. Um, when he came, it was a foreshadow or a type of the millennial reign, right? The thing, it wasn't the actual thing, but it was the gifts that he gave to him were the first fruits of the age to come, right? It was a type of it, just like the time of Shalomo was a type of the millennial reign, right? It's just different ways to showing us the things to teach us what it will be like. But to get more on point there, the uh the way that it's supposed to be now, instead of having the one place, he says it is not the time is coming and now is where they who worship shall worship not in Yerushalayim or on Mount Gizarim, but they shall worship in set apartness and truth, for such is the desire of the Father, right? That was the key. And in every place that we dwell, we were to partake of these covenants. So it was no longer just in one location, but spread out. And that was a type of what it's going to be like when he makes his kings and Kohanems over the nations for 1,000 years, right? But it wasn't perfect then. It was a type, and there was also foreshadowing and foreshowing other things like his death, the selling of Yahusif into captivity. A lot of stuff was going on, right? But you're not wrong in that, brother. Um, Ideally, and it mentions this in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the resurrection of his body politic in the world is necessity before he returns. It mentions that when 15 come together in perfect Kodashah and they reestablish the assembly in the wilderness there, the Yachad Kahal, then it shall be the time to prepare the way of Yahuah and make his path straight, as it's foretold what they were doing in the times of Yahukanon and what we're working towards with the mission of Eliyahu, if you remember me talking about that, right? Where unlike the southern kingdom, who returned to the land while still not being believers in Yahushua, they get that afterwards. They're going to be ravished, half the city destroyed, half taken in captivity, and the remnant to be left there before he returns, and they repent and they see the one whom they pierced and they mourn for him. The ones that are his, that are of the northern kingdom outside of the land, we don't get that. We have to repent and we have to do things right before he comes, which is the whole mission of Eliyahu, right? We'll get more into that as we go. But was there any other comments or questions, brother?
That because it mentions, I forgot exactly where in the Bible, that eventually we'll go back to the temple or but it'll be a temple of David tabernacle of David, which was a place for prayer, because they would no longer have the temple to go to as we're in now.
Hmm.
Our temple is prayer, David's place.
Yes, sir. The book of Yechezkiel is really out of order, but the tabernacle, the dimensions and things mentioned in there, I believe, is for the millennial reign. And what the prince does in the eastern gate and whatnot, it's all right there. And I think you're talking about that. There's also
Yeah, that and it's prayer is what he wants from us, not the blood of the uh, temple made with stone, but he wants the sacrifice of our lips,
oh, absolutely.
which is literally a sacrifice. He calls it.
Absolutely. I don't believe there's ever going to be sacrifices of animals again for the propitiation or the memorial of that or anything in the same sense as there was beforehand. I do think that there will be men making offerings during the millennial reign for the benefit of mortals that still eat food. Um, that's something that's mentioned where the sons of Zadok will offer the fat and the blood during that time. It's specifically alluding to, well, it was fulfilled first in the Maccabees in the physical, and then it's going to be in a larger scale, the fulfillment during the millennial reign. You see that spoken of in the exhortation of the Dead Sea Scrolls, where it's talking about this stuff. Um, but how all that plays out, I can't begin to tell you. I don't know all the nuances of it. I know there are no more sacrifices, excuse me, there are no more sacrifices for sin. Yahushua was all sufficient for our needs, period. That is beyond question, right? Or it should be anyways. Um,
There's a lot more in that.
what do you mean, brother?
Uh, when I was a child and I had to endure the indignities of spankings for my misdeeds, that was the giving of blood. You know, that was symbolic of the sacrifice. What they had to do to get me back online was whip me good. But as we go through our lives and as history reveals, if we look at all of the history as the life of a man or a person as he's going through different stages of development, we find that as we're older, we have more light and we're expected to walk in that light. Therefore, we no longer need those blood sacrifices. We should have learned by them. So they're never going to be there again because we're never going to be that kind of a child again. We've passed through, mankind has passed through that adolescent period, and now he expects us to operate more like mature adults, which don't require the beatings.
Right. But it also it mentions in Clement that though we're given so much more of the secret treasures of his kingdom, the hidden knowledge, we're exposed to so much more danger because of it, because the world reviles the things of our
Absolutely.
faith, right? But
When I
yeah,
was a child, I had no lust for a female until I became what an adult. Then you begin to seek those other pleasures. There's a big difference between the desires of a child and desires of an adult. And yeah, with the light comes responsibility.
yes. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, brother. All right.
Shut up now.
Anytime. Well, not that you have to shut up, but anytime you want to talk. This is chapter 18.
Well, you know, if we just a sec, you mentioned that there and the whole Torah group. I think it's why we want to get together on days other than Shabbat, and so we can more openly and freely discuss what's going on. But it's really important that we share amongst ourselves and reinforce each other. If we're going to operate as his priests upon the earth, we need all the training, all the sharing, all the encouraging we can get from one another.
Amen.
But now I'll shut up. We need those discussions.
All right. Thank you, brother. So this is chapter 18 now, and we're going on. It says the charge of the Kohanim and Leviim, the Kohanim's portion, the Leviim's portion, the heave offering to the Kohanim out of the Leviim's portion. So it's going over all the details about what we call the tax system. The ministers of the Creator here require subsistence to live on because they have no inheritance. So they live off of the the things that are given as free will offerings to our Creator, they partake of. It says, and Yahuah spoke to Aharon, saying, you and your sons in your father's house shall bear the sins of the set apart things, and you and your sons shall bear the iniquity of your kahuna. And take to yourself your brethren, the tribe of Lewi, the family of your father, and let them be joined to you, and let them minister to you, and you and your sons with you before the tabernacle of witness. And they shall keep the charges, or your charges, and the charges of the tabernacle. Only they shall not approach the set apart vessels and the altar, so both they and you shall not die. And they shall be joined to you, and shall keep the charges of the tabernacle of witness in all the services of the tabernacle, and a stranger shall not approach to you. And you shall keep the charges of the set apart things, and the charges of the altar, and there shall not be anger among the children of Israel. And I have taken your brethren the Leviim out of the midst of the children of Israel, or Yisrael, a present given to Yahuah, to minister in the services of the tabernacle of witness. And you and your sons after you shall keep up your kahuna ministration, according to the whole manner of the altar, and that which is within the veil. And you shall minister in the services as the office of your kahuna, and the stranger that comes near shall die. And Yahuah said to Aharon, and behold, I have given you the charge of the first fruits of all things consecrated to me by the children of Israel. And I have given them to you as an honor, and to your sons after you for a perpetual ordinance. And let this be to you from all the set apart things that are consecrated, the burnt offerings, from all their gifts, and from all their sacrifices, and from every trespass offering of theirs, and from all their sin offerings. Whatever things they give to me of all their set apart things, they shall be yours and your sons. In the most set apart place shall you eat them. Every male shall eat them. You and your sons, they shall be set apart to you. And this shall be to you of the first fruits of their gifts. Of all the wave offerings of the children of Israel, to you have I given them, and to your sons and your daughters with you, a perpetual ordinance. Every clean person in your house shall eat them. Meaning, if they're unclean for touching the dead, or an unclean animal, or the emissions of a man, or the time of the month of the woman, for any reason that they might be unclean, they could not partake of this. They would have to be separated at that time. It says, in every, that's a picture, especially if you're a minister. If you're spiritually unclean, you can't be eating of and partaking of the set apart things of Yahuah and expect to be acceptable to him, right? That doesn't mean that you don't partake of his word, but you're definitely not going to be ministering or doing the officiating while you're in error. It directly mentions in the apostolic constitutions that anyone in a position of servant, or what you want to call an authority figure, once they go and commit tyranny, they have vacated their position. They are no longer a real overseer, but a usurper, a traitor to their covenant with their creator, if you will. It says, every first offering of oil and every first offering of wine, their first fruits of corn, whatsoever they may give to Yahuah, to thee have I given them. All the first fruits that are in the land, whatsoever they shall offer to Yahuah, shall be yours. Every clean person in your house shall eat them. Every devoted thing among the children of Yisrael shall be yours, and everything that opens the womb of all flesh, not just clean animals. The part in the book of Yobelim where it mentions that the tenth of all from Yaakov, and he gave the unclean animals, it says he gave, and then it puts in italics, not unto Louis. That's not true because he had to have the donkeys to carry the burdens and the other animals to carry the pull the wagons and to do the things that the clean animals who were being offered for sacrifices could not be used for. But either way, it says, in everything that opens the womb of all flesh, whatsoever they bring to Yahuah, whether man or beast, shall be yours. Only the firstborn of men shall be surely redeemed, and you shall redeem them, the firstborn of unclean cattle. And the redemption of them from 1 month old, their valuation of 5 shekels, it is 20 oboli according to the set apart shekel. But you shall not redeem the firstborn of calves, and the firstborn of sheep, and the firstborn of goats. They are kadosh, and you shall pour their blood upon the altar, and you shall offer the fat as a burnt offering for a smell of sweet savor to Yahuah. And the flesh shall be yours, as also the breast of the wave offering, and as the right shoulder, it shall be yours. Every special offering of the set apart things, whatsoever the children of Yisrael shall especially offer, or shall specially offer to Yahuah, I have given to you and to your sons and to your daughters with you a perpetual ordinance. It is a covenant of salt forever before Yahuah, for you and your seed after you. Now it mentions that the gifts of Elohim are not to be repented of. And this is a thing that is true even after the renewed covenant times, where the sons of Louis were always given to be ministers before him. They could leave what they were doing and come and serve him in the Hikkel. You find an example of this very thing in Barnabas, who was a Louis, who sold his possession, laid it at the hands of or the feet of the emissaries, and he himself became an emissary to serve Yahuah. It says, and another example of this would be Martin Luther. He was not a priest, if you will, but was, through the instigations of our Creator, compelled to be one, and then turned to the truth and served him diligently, although not perfectly, right? But we can all say the same. And Yahuwah said to Aharon, you shall have no inheritance in their land, neither shall you have any portion among them. For I, your portion and your inheritance in the midst of the children of Yisrael. And behold, I have given to the sons of Louis every tithe in Yisrael for an inheritance for their services, whereinsoever they perform ministry in the tabernacle of witness. And the children of Yisrael shall no more draw nigh to the tabernacle of witness to incur fatal guilt. Meaning, when they ran impetuously towards it and the plague broke out and killed them, right? And The Luiim himself shall perform the service of the tabernacle of witness, and they shall bear their iniquities. It is a perpetual statute throughout their generations, and in the midst of the children of Israel they shall not receive an inheritance. Because I have given as a distinct portion to the Luiim for an inheritance the tithes of the children of Israel, whatsoever they shall offer to Yahuah. Therefore I said to them, in the midst of the children of Israel they shall have no inheritance. And Yahuah spoke to Moshe, saying, You shall also speak to the Luiim, and you shall say to them, If you take the tithe from the children of Israel, which I have given you from them for an inheritance, then you shall separate from it a heave offering to Yahuah, a tenth of the tenth. So even the Luiim had to give a tithe, but not the sons of Aharon or Aharon himself. And your heave offerings shall be reckoned to you as corn from the floor, and an offering from the winepress. So shall you also separate them from all the offerings of Yahuah out of all your tithes, whatsoever you shall receive from the children of Israel. And you shall give of them an offering to Yahuah, to Aharon the Kohen. Of all your gifts you shall offer an offering to Yahuah, and of every first fruit, the consecrated part from it. And you shall say to them, When you shall offer the first fruits from it, then shall it be reckoned to the Luiim as produce from the threshing floor, and as produce from the winepress. And you shall eat it in any place, you and your families, for this is your reward for your services in the tabernacle of witness. And you shall not bear sin by reason of it, for you shall have offered an offering of first fruits from it, and you shall not profane the Kodesh things of the children of Israel, that you die not. All right, just one moment. All right, we are on chapter 19 now, and I was just asked outside of the recording here what Korok was, and it was the name of one of the gentlemen there, but what his name means, and if there was any significance. His name means baldness. It's Kof Resh Cheth, Korach, right? And it means baldness, ice, hail, or frost, which baldness in itself doesn't mean you're not unclean. It specifically mentions in Leviticus 19 that if a man is bald, he is bald, he is clean. So it's not a deterrent even from being a foreteller, because Yahoo or Hosea, Hushia, I'm sorry, Elishua, if you will, was bald. He was reviled by the young men, and then the bears went and mauled them because he was bald. Right? But the idea of baldness not necessarily being a honorable thing is known. But the idea of hail, frost, and ice all being signs or parts of judgment is a fact that's mentioned in Sirach. And that can definitely be seen with his name being used in a parable there for what was happening. But we're going to go ahead and continue here. This is chapter 19, and this is on water of separation made of the ashes of a red heifer, the law for the use of it in purification of the unclean. And again, this is another one where you can see a parable of how Yahushua himself, who was the one that was taken outside of the camp to be an offering, how he cleanses us in such a manner. The parable's gone over in detail in the Epistle of Barnabas, although that has been tampered with a little bit. So you got to be careful with it. This is, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe and Aharon, saying, This is the constitution of the law, as Yahuwah has commanded, saying, Speak to the sons of Yisrael, And let them take for you a red heifer without spot, which has no spot on her, and on which no yoke has been put. And you shall give her to Eleazar the Kohen, and they shall bring her out of the camp into a clean place, and shall kill her before his face. And Eleazar shall take of her blood, and sprinkle of her blood 7 times in front of the tabernacle of witness. And they shall burn her to ashes before him, and her skin and her flesh and her blood with her dung shall be consumed. And the Kohen shall take cedar wood and hyssop and scarlet wool, and they shall cast them into the midst of the burning of the red or of the heifer. And the Kohen shall wash his garments and bathe his body in water, and afterwards he shall go into the camp, and the Kohen shall be unclean till evening. And he that burns her shall wash his garments and bathe his body, and shall be unclean till evening. And a clean man shall gather up the ashes of the heifer, and lay them up in a clean place outside the camp, and they shall be for the congregation of the children of Israel to keep. It is the water of sprinkling, a purification. And he that gathers up the ashes of the heifer shall wash his garments, and shall be unclean until evening. And it shall be a perpetual statute for the children of Israel, and for the strangers joined to them. He that touches the dead body of any man shall be unclean 7 days. He shall be purified on the 3rd day, and the 7th day, and shall be clean. But if he be not purged on the 3rd day and the 7th day, he shall not be clean. Yahushua came, if we have it right and we go by what's written, it seems to be in all measures that he came at the end of the 3rd day and died, just like he did the Pesach at the end of the 3rd day in the evenings. On the 3rd day of the week in the evenings was on the 14th of the 1st month. So it's always that 3rd day and 7th day picture throughout the scriptures. That's what it is alluding to, at least in this capacity here. You have the 3rd day in which he came and he died for us, and then the 7th day, which is the millennial reign. And if you be not purified on these days, you're not clean, period. Right? He says, everyone that touches the carcass of the man or the person of a man, if he should have died and have not been purified, has defiled the tabernacle of Yahuah. That soul shall be cut off from Israel, because the water of sprinkling has not been sprinkled upon him. He is unclean. His uncleanness is yet upon him. Now, this was a physical thing to teach a spiritual truth. Before this injunction was given, you had Moshe carrying the bones of Yahusef out of Mitzrayim, and it was not considered an uncleanness to him. You had the children taking Yaakov's body, all right, and hugging him. Abraham died with Yaakov in his bosom, and he woke up dead with a dead man holding him. He was not considered unclean. When Abraham had died, his children fell upon him and cried. They were not considered unclean. Yahusef fell upon his father and cried. He was not considered unclean. This was not a thing before this injunction, and this injunction was lifted. It's one of the added bonds that was no longer applicable after Yahushua came. You can bury the dead, you can take care of the sick, you can do things that you will not become unclean. There is no washings you have to do, no prayers you have to make, no sacrifice you have to give, no ritual you have to perform to be made clean from a thing. The only thing that defiles you are what comes from within, what your evil thoughts and inclinations and the actions that stem from it. And that includes the choice of eating things that are not food, right? This is, and this, the law, if a man die in a house, every one that goes into the house and all things in the house shall be unclean 7 days. And every open vessel which has not a covering bound upon it shall be unclean. And every one who shall touch a man slain by violence, or a corpse, or a man's bone, or a sepulchre shall be unclean 7 days. Now remember, the man who died and fell upon the bones of Elishua was resurrected when he hit them. He wasn't considered unclean from that, but he was a corpse when he hit it too. However, you can see it's not the bones that make a man dirty. It's violating the word that defiles you. I hope you can see that. It's from what comes from within you that you manifest in creation that defiles you. And this is exactly what Yahushua said when it says it's not what you ingest, it's what comes from within. It doesn't mean that pig's food now. It doesn't mean that lobster is food now. It just means that the defilement comes from your intentions to do an evil thing, not from the body itself. This is, and everyone who shall touch a man slain by violence, or a corpse, or a bone, or a sepulchre shall be unclean 7 days. And they shall take for the unclean of the burnt ashes of purification, and they shall pour upon them running water into a vessel. And a clean man shall take hyssop and dip it into the water, and sprinkle it upon the house and the furniture, and all the souls that are therein, and upon him that touched the man's bone, or the slain man, or the corpse, or the tomb. And the clean man shall sprinkle on the unclean on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day. And on the 7th day he shall purify himself, and shall wash his garments, and bathe himself in water, and shall be unclean until evening. And whatever man shall be defiled, and shall not purify himself, that soul shall be cut off from the midst of the congregation, because he has defiled the set apart things of Yahuah, because the water of sprinkling has not been sprinkled upon him, he is unclean. And it shall be to you a perpetual statute, and he that sprinkles the water of sprinkling shall wash his garments, and he that touches the water of sprinkling shall be unclean until evening. And whatsoever the unclean man shall touch shall be unclean, and the inner being that touches it shall be unclean until evening. Oh, all right, and we will stop here for today, and we'll continue with chapter 20, Father willing, next week, unless we have a segue for whatever reason. Until then, you all have a great rest of your Sabbath, Shabbat Shalom, and a great week ahead, Shavua Tov, and we will talk to you next time. Thank you kindly, and Shalom.